right, so it's nice to meet you, Mr. Powell. I'll just introduce myself. My name is Sarah. I'm a Chief Science Officer from the Tucson Cabinet of Arizona. And my first question is, so was this your first career choice?
And you can call me Chuck. Mr. Powell's my dad. So, um, no, it wasn't my first choice. I started out in archaeology here in Tucson, and I kind of fell into more on the mapping side, mapping the sites with survey equipment. I had some training in that, and it kind of just fell into the GS, eventually from archaeology. That led me to drones and remote.
Oh, okay, that's really interesting. Oh, there's actually a history major, so I can identify with that. What were you usually studying in archaeology then?
It was mostly prehistoric. We were doing mostly Hoboken down here in Tucson. I went through Pima Community College for my archaeological certificate in advanced mapping for archaeology, and I just started working for some of the private firms here in Tucson.
Okay, so what does your day-to-day career look like now?
Okay, so for my drones, when I'm working as a drone pilot, the flying part is the easy part. That's the stuff we enjoy. And most of my day is for prepping. So first thing I have to make sure is it able to fly in an area that the project is in. So I have to look at sites such as before you fly, where we can see what the airspace is. Is it clear to fly? Is there any temporary flight restrictions? Here in Arizona in the West, we have a lot of forest fires. And if you're in an area where current fire is going on, you can't fly. That's an example of a temporary flight restriction where normally it would be clear to fly. But on a certain day, if there's a fire or so forth, we have to make sure that we're good to fly. So I look at the FAA websites, and then I start planning the mission. So depending on what the mission is, I plan my mission. So legally, we can fly up to 400 feet above the ground. So anywhere between that. So the higher we fly, the more area we can cover. So depending on the needs of the project, we usually fly between 200 and 400 feet for multi-spectral imagery. For vegetation analysis, we're usually right around that 400 feet, just below 400 feet. For some of our engineering and topographic needs, we're a little lower doing that. So I'm planning my mission, seeing what aircraft I'm going to have to use. Is it my fixed wing or my multi-rotor, depending on the size of the project and the type of project I'm flying. And then we plan our mission. We plan where we're set our ground control. On most of our flights, we're setting ground control to pinpoint the photos more accurately. So we're out there with survey equipment with our engineering group or our land surveyors, and planning that. We do a rough rule about 5 to 7 points per battery. So the longer the flight is, the more control points we're going to need. And we also want to pick points that we can clearly see from photographs, so not under vegetation, kind of flat areas. Just want to hit the highs and lows of the project terrain as well. And then we start prepping the aircraft, charging batteries, charging the controllers, and so forth. And then the day before the flight, we file a NOTAM, a notice to airmen. This is a site that we can go to on the FAA website. It's actually a phone number we call. And we file a notice to airmen saying we're going to be flying at this altitude, at this area, and at the time frame. So all pilots get that report, be it UAS or drone operators or pilots that fly airplanes. And then the day of the flight, we're checking our flight areas, make sure there's no temporary flight restrictions, and we're still clear to fly. Checking the weather. We do have specs on each of these aircraft where we can fly, how hot the temperature is, how windy it is. So my multi-rotor one, the white ones here, can fly a little over 103 degrees. And then my swing, we can only fly at 95, no more than 95 degrees. In July, that can be problematic, where we only have a very small window to fly. So we're looking at that as well. So weather is a huge role in planning. And then we go out to site. We do a safety briefing where we discuss the flight plan with anyone involved in the mission. So we're talking about where we're going to take off, where we're going to land, and who's responsible for what. So we usually have a pilot. The FAA calls it pilot in command, a PIC, a visual observer. Their responsibility is looking at air traffic. Is there any planes, helicopters, so forth in the flight area? And then if we have a second person, that they would be usually in charge of air traffic as well, but also anyone that comes up, so they don't disturb the pilot. Kind of a buffer. They talk to that person if they're, usually if it's in the populated places, people come up and ask us what we do, and that person is there to kind of buffer that so the pilot and the visual observer can do their job and conduct the mission safely. And then we also discuss what hazards are in the areas. Any tall power poles, tall trees that the aircraft can hit during takeoff, landing, or during the flight. And then what emergency procedures are we going to do? If we have a runaway aircraft where it loses its communication link back to the controller, who's calling the FAA? What are the steps we're going to be doing? And then we conduct our mission. Usually, on both types of aircraft we have, we do automatic missions where the controller flies itself. The software decides where it takes a photo, how many photos it takes. So on a bad day is if we touch the controller for us. So we don't like to touch the controller as little as possible. On our multi-rotor, we usually land it ourselves. We take off. It's all automated takeoff and land, or takeoff. And on the fixed wing, we have to toss it manually, and then it lands or crashes gently when during landing, typical to an aircraft. So it's very important to pick a nice takeoff and landing gear. So that's a typical day of what it is, and then we get back to the office and we transfer the photos over to the computer and start the long process of creating those end products.
Yeah. So, what missions have the drones been on recently?
Yeah. So this year we've been flying a lot of vegetation analysis mitigation projects where we're looking at the health of plants. So we use a multi-spectral camera for that. We have two different aircraft that does it. We have the fixed wing that we can switch out the sensor, and this is our multi-spectral. I don't know if you can see very well, but it actually has 5 cameras in it, And then we have one of our DJI products right here that have 6 cameras in the sensor, where it's taking individual red, green, near infrared, and red edge, and then our RGB or color picture. So every time it takes a picture, it takes 5 or 6 photos at that exact location at the same time. And we, on our projects, we work for a lot of mining companies where we're doing mitigation sites where they set aside some land and they have to monitor it and and have some kind of success criteria, and be it canopy growth, number of trees surviving each year. And we use the drones to collect that data and measure the success. Similar to the green drone program or green drone project up in Salt River. They're using the same technology and using those multi-spectral bands to look at the health of the trees or the health of the plants. We're doing the same thing. And then we have a few projects where we're doing asset inventory of reservoirs, where we're looking at the conditions of the reservoirs' roofs that we can't get people up on safely. So we take our drone and fly around that area and take photos of the reservoirs, the infrastructure on the sites. And then our engineer looks at those photos and write a report on the condition based on those photos.
Yeah, so it sounds like drones are very helpful in keeping humans safe. So they seem really beneficial. Do they have any other benefits to your day-to-day job that you could describe?
Yeah, definitely. That's one thing a lot of our clients love about the drones, that we're exposing a piece of equipment to the humans to harsh conditions, dangerous environments. So that's a huge benefit. The other huge benefit I see with the drone, it can quickly collect thousands upon thousands of data points. When we set up those ground control points and our software stitches all those images together, called structure for motion, we actually get a 3D surface built on all those photos. And so we're getting not only those red, green, blue, and then the multispectral values, we're getting an X, Y, and Z of those points as well. So a coordinate, so where is that specific coordinate in the world, or that point on that picture in the world? How high is it? And then those spectral values that we can to analyze and come up with some indices or just a picture for our clients. So that's one benefit. Another thing too is they say a picture says 1,000 is worth 1,000 words. So having a picture, be it from one year to the next, they can see patterns and trends going on with their project very easily. So those are the benefits I see using the drone technology.
Yeah, that sounds really good. So I'm going to transition a little bit into how can students get to this career. So what are some of the best ways to engage resources and experiences related to the field that you work in?
So firstly, anyone older than 16 can take their FAA Part 107 drone to get their license. There's plenty of study material online for it. It's a nominal fee to take it. But I think the best way to engage the resources is the internet. there's so many data sets out there for remote sensing. Drone data is getting more readily available on such sites as Earth Explorer from the USGS. They have a tremendous amount of data for remote sensing, all the Landsat data, dating back to the 70s to today. And then they do have some UAS data sets. A new site for the state of Arizona is AZGeo. That's a free geospatial hub that the state of Arizona runs that people can contribute data to. So all the counties, all the cities have their geospatial data up there, and trying to get drone imagery up there as well. And then some of the drone manufacturers have some great data sets and some free trials for software, so you can see the post-processing. Really, the post-processing is the most important part of drone technology because that is your deliverable. So there's those ways. There's organizations such as AJEC, which I'm a member of, and the co-chair of the UAS work group, where you can come and join the community of UAS pilots and geospatial professionals that we discuss many aspects of what we do, what current projects we have, what the future is looking like. So those would be great resources for any student to have. And then also reach out to some private companies that are is doing drone work, or some of the county and state departments, municipality departments. I would say a vast majority would be willing to talk to anyone about this. We're a very friendly community, and also very passionate about our work and the tools we have.
All right, good to know. Good to know. So my last question for you was, what advice would you give to your 14 or 18-year-old self when looking for a career?
Well, I'll tell you what I tell my daughters. Find a passion, because you're going to be doing it for a long time. So usually, I believe that you can make a living at whatever you're in love with to do. You might just have to work a little harder on some passions than others, but you're definitely going to be doing it a long time, the majority of your life. So definitely find something that you're passionate about. The other thing too is always believe in yourself, and don't be afraid of saying yes, and figuring it out as you're doing it. And that's 80 to 90% of my career is figuring it out. There's no each project is a different problem, and there's no written book of how to solve this problem. So it's figuring it out as we go and coming up with the best solution. So can I ask you a couple questions?
Definitely.
What school do you go to in Tucson?
So I go to a virtual school. I go to ASU Prep Digital.
Okay. And how did you fall into being a chief science officer?
Okay, that's a very good question. So my brother was in the chief science officer program beforehand, and I was very obsessed with him, and I wanted to do everything that he did. So I ended up joining the program.
Nice.
And then I brought it to my school.
Nice. And how is there how did you become is there a process to become a CSO?
Yeah, so first you're just going to apply. We have a little Google form you can fill out, say, hey, I want to be a chief science officer. And then during the summer, we have our Leadership Training Institute, where you get all the training on action planning, so how we make our impact, public speaking, and how to tell your story, which actually just happened 2 weeks ago, a few weeks ago. Um, so yeah, we still have some LTIs going on actually.
Nice. Well, congratulations. And then the other question is, do you have a passion in science yet? Have you found your
I do. I want to be a wildlife biologist studying gray wolves at Yellowstone National Park.
very nice.
Mhm.
I work with some great biologists here at Westland. So we're an environmental consulting and engineering firm. So we do a lot of, I would say a majority of my work is on the natural resource side more than the engineering.
Thank you so much for
The
meeting
time,
with. Yeah, yeah.
definitely, definitely.